So I had one grandparent that I was close to. She is the ancestor if I had mingled instead of being introverted in the corner with my coffee that I would have told you about. When she was in assisted living, she would shoo away the chaplain. My granddaughter is a minister. I don't need a chaplain. And I would tell her, Grandma, please don't use me as an excuse for your spiritual bypassing. She wanted me to travel. And as she was dying, I had planned a trip abroad. Anxious to leave, I told her I considered staying. She said, do not worry, I will not die while you are gone. She died the moment my airplane landed at home. The moment I came back, the moment I turned my phone on, it rang with my mom saying, your grandmother, Maggie McGee, bless that name, has died. I need you to come to the house, gather the flowers in our garden, and bring them to where she's living. So I gathered the flowers, and we gathered all the old black and white photos, all of her favorites, and we sat at her bedside, covered her in flowers, put on her lipstick because, damn it, she would not have it otherwise, and sang 4 hours, waiting out the longest legal amount of time before they had to come get her. So when she died, it impacted me. Now, in 2020, 3 years after her death, it is the beginning of our pandemic. I am the interim minister at Mountain Vista. We are just about to create the greatest YouTube series on the face of the planet. Thank you, Jody. But I am feeling miserably alone. I have just moved here with my boyfriend for my first church job, and I am miserably pregnant. Now, with the pandemic here, we're getting the bumps and the bursts in the messaging. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask, go out, don't go out. And there's a brief moment where everyone is being told that they can kind of go out, and massage envy. Do you know massage envy? Thank you. Massage envy is begging you to come back. They promise, just wear a mask, our people will wear masks, we'll take your temperature. And I am so pregnant, I'm so scared of being sick, but damn it, I need a massage. So we book an appointment, my partner and I. We schedule. Now the thing about me is that I'm a minister. I don't talk during massages. I sleep. My partner is a stay-at-home dad. He is desperate to talk to an adult human being. And even when it was the pandemic, before our baby arrived, he was desperate to talk to an adult. So luckily, we go into our separate rooms. I go into mine, fall quickly asleep at the touch of my feet by that healing practitioner. And my partner, soon-to-be husband, disappears to talk. Now, as he talks, the massage therapist, skilled as she is, begins to tell him that she is also a medium. My boyfriend, being an extrovert, is thrilled by this idea and says, well, my wife, soon to be, is a minister, so I know something about that. They begin to talk. And as she talks, she says, there's someone here for you. He says, tell me about them. She has red, curly hair. I don't know anyone like that, my boyfriend says. She has big, sparkly glasses. Nope, don't know her. She has green eyes. I don't know her. She says she's your grandma. That's not my grandma. My grandma is still alive. She says her name is Maggie. She says to you, don't worry, it's going to be all right. My boyfriend ends the massage early. He runs out of the massage room, pays for me, and is just waiting at the door for me and my sleepy pregnantness to come out and meet him before it tumbles out of him. And God, I am crying. Pregnancy and visitation, crying. Now here, I did not learn to work with ancestors. I am a lifelong UU. I know how to explain things, but I don't know how to work with the dead. I have been left to my own devices to make meaning of what happens when we die. And I ask that you resist with me putting any religious or scientific framework on what happened. I ask that you sit with me in the wonder of it, the utter mystery of it. And as I sit in the mystery, the how quiets into wow. And the question I ask is, will I let it change me? Not how did it happen? Did my boyfriend make it up? I know some of you are wondering. But wow, will I let this change me? And here is what changed. Now I find myself talking to Grandma. And when I talk to Grandma, there's a deeper voice within that I can tell the difference, that sometimes answers me. And sometimes I see something beautiful. And I mention it to her, Grandma, look at that rose. And in noticing it in honor of her, the rose is more beautiful, as if two of us are seeing it. Sometimes I leave food for her, or I eat food in honor of her, especially chocolate cake. And I pause to say, here, Grandma, here is our fork. Let's eat it together. And the food is always better. So what I learned from this visitation is the only person who had made my grandmother dead was me. And that by making her dead, I had not enlarged my world. I had made it smaller. Now I have a different story about ancestors. In 2015, I was part of a multiracial, multi-class, multi-faith delegation to Hiroshima and Nagasaki in honor of the bombings. Now, we were a small and mighty delegation brought at the request of elder Japanese activists with their peace shirts and jeans and their little sun hats. They would fit in right here. And they had carefully put together a tour of us to meet spaces and people impacted by harm. We went to both commemorative ceremonies. We went to Okinawa to visit activists challenging the base, and we went to Fukushima to meet a farmer suffering from the nuclear fallout. Now, I was there partially for my doctoral field work in community psychology. I was curious in studying how are you accountable for historical ancestral harm. But I was there for my own healing and accountability. One side of my family is a military lineage, including the lineage of receiving funding and money from the military that funded my childhood and paid for my religious studies degree. So I felt an ancestral tentiveness in claiming the mission of going to Japan in the spirit of accountability for my ancestors. Now, as one part of my preparation, I read books, Unitarian Universalists, by Japanese feminist ethicist Yuki Miyamoto. She writes specifically about the question of can you have an ethical dialogue with the dead and an ethical relationship to memory. For her, and she is a second-generation survivor of the nuclear bombs, her mom lived through them. What is most important for a dignified, ethical relationship with the dead is that it is dialogical. One in which we stop seeing the dead as it. I don't talk about my grandmother, I talk to my grandmother. It is an object to be acted upon, and instead I see the dead, I see our memories, and I see the community of memories as something to be in dialogue with. She says that your capacity to be in dialogue with the dead will influence your ability to have love among the living. Now, she knows this because in her body, she is a survivor of nuclear weapons. And there is a Japanese word for this, hibakusha, the survivors, or those impacted by the bomb. Now, part of the activism of people in Japan who survived the bomb is to be storytellers and memory keepers. Some are even paid by the government to tell the story so that we do not forget. But they do not tell a simple story. In my own experience of sitting with hibakusha testimonies in Japan, they all began in apology. They began in recognition for the harms perpetrated by Japanese imperialism and war crimes. Then they move into a complex testimony of a living experience of a nuclear bomb. They offer this without blame or shame. They invite you, the listener, into dialogue and into your own healing and accountability. Now, they embody that kind of complex accountability, being someone who can cause harm, even if by your own government, and also someone who can be directly, fiercely impacted by harm. And they refuse easy labels of victims and perpetrators. They invite you to be complex with them. It is a dignified dialogue. You are worthy of listening to, and so are they. And of course, although bomb survivors are not required to do this, there was one study that found those elders who did lived, thrived because of their activism. There is something about eldering that is about this role. So what the hell does that have to do with church conflict? I admit, watching the complex accountability in the lives and bodies of hibakusha makes our conflicts a little small. It also makes our resistance to looking at the past, well, let's say it this way, cute and pathetic. That phrase, cute and pathetic, is not my own. It is from the educator Vanessa de Oliveira, who is part of the Gesturing Towards Decolonial Futures collective, a collective of indigenous leaders from South America to Canada, saying how on earth do we educate this people for the world that they need to come and care for now. So she reminds you that your effort at being innocent and non-complicit is cute and pathetic. That doesn't ask you to be guilty or shameful, quite the opposite. It invites you into your dignity as someone capable of harming and healing, someone capable of being harmed and being healed. So this question of who decides the past and who is accountable for it in the present is the cultural question our congregations should be saying something about in the world at large now. Look at fights over textbooks. How we talk about the past matters. History, representation, truth. Consider land acknowledgments. What is that besides a ceremony of acknowledging complex harm? A small and earnest beginning at complex accountability. And where else, damn it, where else should we be learning how to do complex accountability for the past and loving dialogues with the dead in the present than right here? Where else are you planning to learn that? A group of people, thankfully not your family, who want to do it with you. You've struck gold. Our work ahead, the work we are calling each other into for our second year of conflict engagement and restorative practice. It began 1 year ago when your destructive behavior response team, the DBRT, your board and your minister invited me in to come alongside you and look at this congregation's past. This included the known stories of misconduct by ministers, and there are more than one, as well as lay leaders, and the painful conflicts that have happened over your congregation's 75-year history. The questions your leaders were asking is this: how do the conflicts, the beliefs about church or about ministers, how do our ways of being and relating have origins that are older than the moment? Rather than looking at what's happening right now as just coming out of nowhere, they were asking, where did we learn how to be the way we are? What if some of the ways we are being are our best survival strategies from long ago? What if some of us are still hurting? It might not be all of us, but what if some of us are? And then what will we lose if we choose not to look? What unimaginably beautiful future is foregone by refusing to look at the past? Last year, we did so much together. We did a class about our personal responses to conflict. We did a congregational survey where you reflected on your grief and your gratitude for every minister you've ever had. We did workshops on restorative justice. We interviewed 4 of your living former ministers about their experiences working with you. We read through your church histories, and then a small group, your board, your DBRT, your minister, met with me and with ministers from your past and UUA representatives, and we looked at your history like a thick blanket. And what we saw is that this community has survived so much in 75 years. So perhaps it helps to imagine it this way. Imagine that this congregation is a 75-year-old being, not an it. It is a 75-year-old being, and we refuse to make UUCT dead. She, he, they are alive. And they are 75 years old, and they ain't dead yet. So if you have chosen this place to be your spiritual home, then you have adopted an ancestor who needs tending. And if you want this ancestor to thrive in their old age like those rugged Japanese peace activists, sun hats, blue jeans, and peace shirts, then you will need to implore them, which means to implore us, to tell all of our stories with complex accountability for all that you have gone through. Which means that us, listening, taking responsibility, working for personal and shared healing for all that we have been through, those who have been through all of it, those of you who have been through some of it, and those of you who've been through none of it. And if you have come here only recently, and maybe for the first time today, you are not unlike the boyfriend, now my husband, who found himself getting a massage and being spoken to by an ancestor he never met. But he had chosen because he called me family. And that ancestor is going to tell you something. It's going to be all right. But you're going to have to talk to me. So we are going to be inviting all of you this year through workshops, Zoom calls, retreats, experiments, into enlarging your life, our capacity personally, relationally, communally, and culturally to have ethical, accountable dialogues with the dead, such that we have a greater love among the living. Will you join us? May it be so. We have one more additional offering to invite you into. It is that our first year of work last year was generously funded by the UUCT board. This year, in the midst of so much for you all, and a real commitment to tending your financial well-being, individuals from last year made pledges to support this work. And last year, individuals made $5,000 in pledges so that I could get started with you right away in August. The next part of that includes seeking more funding. And what we will be doing is what's called a Faithify campaign. If you've heard of GoFundMe, then you'll be familiar with Faithify. Faithify is the Unitarian Universalist version of GoFundMe. So you can get lost in the Faithify web of all the beautiful projects that need funding. Ours is now one that is listed on the website. What we're inviting you to do, and you'll be receiving a newsletter this week just about Faithify, is to consider a gift, but more importantly maybe, to invite your ancestors to help fund this work with us. It might be that you have friends in other UU congregations who would be moved by what we're doing here. It might be that you have family who know that this is the place you call your spiritual home. We are grateful for any donation you give and for your invitation for the people that you love to give as well. And you could be the first person to give today. Today we launched our campaign and it is currently at 0. So there are karmic points. Karmic ancestor points for whoever gets there first. We encourage collective racing. Thank you.